pages long, and we'll take questions at the end so people can understand what it means to be sovereign as opposed to having citizenship. Because so that's what we're trying to break down and define for y'all here this evening. If you go to page 11, under status at law, because citizenship and sovereignty has come up under what's called a status at law. A status at law is more than an idle word. In law, you hold a status that colors the viewpoint of the court. You establish the status, it can't be given to you. That is why nobody can go and declare who you are for you. You have to do it for yourself. When Dred Scott had the court case against the United States, he tried to make the United States declare his status at law on record as a citizen of the United States. And the courts refused him. It wasn't saying that blacks or people of his color of complexion or his ancestral lineage was prohibited from being a citizen. It was the fact that the courts or the government cannot declare a status for him. He has to make that declaration. He has to tell the government who he is. You have to tell the government who you are. And you have to stay firm on that foundation of who you are. At the same time of claiming what you are and who you are, you're going to have to prove that. So you can't say, as we saw earlier today, you can't say that I'm an Egyptian and try to go back and use Egyptian law to protect you, because they want you to have to prove on paper that you are an Egyptian. And it's even much more further. Some people have even came up and said, well, why can't I declare that I'm a child of the creator of the universe? Well, see, we live on a planet that is built upon nationality or nation. Nothing wrong with claiming that you're a child of the universe, because all of the creator of the universe, because all of us are. But for reference points of communication, that is really not understood. So they go about on the basis of what is understood. And at the present time, since we deal upon the level of nations, then that's where we have to operate from. Does that make sense? For example, in the Constitution of the State of Georgia, Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 15, the social status of a citizen shall never be the subject of legislation. Here in Georgia, as well as in many of your other states, they're not going to declare a certain group of people this or that. That is something that that group of people has to declare for themselves. Article 3, Section 4, Section 6, Paragraph 4, no special law relating to the rights or status of private persons shall be enacted, which means at the point that you say that I am this or I am that, they cannot go back into the books and say that, well, we're only going to recognize these group of people only. They can't do that, because then that's creating an atmosphere by which people have to change what they declared what they were to something else to appease the government. And that's not lawful. It's also not legal in the state of Georgia, but and even furthermore, it's not lawful. And as you learn during the course of the studies of law, because that's basically what each person is going to have to do, is that what is necessarily legal is never lawful. So what is lawful is always legal. Lawful takes more of a standing upon the morals of and the essence and the ethical views, but legal doesn't. Legal takes on the form of a law, but it's not a law. There is no speed limit law. There's only a speed limit statute. It acts like a law, but it really isn't, because gravity is not going to prohibit you from doing 55, 65, 70 miles an hour. Those are statutes. But if you try to go up to the Marriott Marquis thinking that you can fly and believing that you can fly, and you jump, law of gravity is going to pull you down. So there's a big difference between statutes and law, or the legality and the lawfulness of the different things. Status. The rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties which the third person and the state are concerned. And then you have the core site that it follows that. In essence, what that is basically saying is that you have rights, duties, and capacities, but you also have incapacities. Your incapacities come in is that if you're saying that you have a nationality, but you have a social security card, then you are incapable of doing certain things. Because based upon the social security card, that is a contract which puts you into a subject to the United States. If you don't have that social security card, and you have a nationality that is intact, that is recognizable, then you can operate from the certain parameters of law. For example, an American with no social security card, no driver's license on record, can assert the Constitution as a legal defense if he's ever in a position where he has to go before a court of law. And the reason why he can use the Constitution is because he has no contracts which will prohibit the usage of the Constitution. Social Security is a contract which states that you will follow all the rules and regulations that is laid down in the Social Security Act. So thereby you can't use the Constitution. You have to use the contract by which you have entered into, which is an agreement. And a contract is just like a covenant. It's an agreement between two parties. Whether you knowingly enter into it or not is not necessarily the case in certain situations, because really the government, or the courts I should say, is not going to care whether or not you entered into the Social Security contract unknowingly or unwillingly. They're going to want to know is what is your status at law, and that's what they go on. A lot of us think that it's a racial thing, or they're only going to hem up black people into the courts. White people get hemmed up in the courts too, because they have that same number, and they are bound by that. You don't want to have a citizenship status. You want a nationality status, because a nationality status puts you at a sovereign status. They go hand in hand. Citizenship goes hand in hand with slavery. Nationality goes hand in hand with sovereignty. Let's talk about what is a sovereign. Sovereign, having undisputed right to make decisions and act accordingly. That was out of New Webster's Dictionary. Sovereign, a person, body, or state in which the independent and supreme authority is vested. Black's Law Dictionary. Sovereignty. By sovereignty, it is in its largest sense meant supreme, absolute, uncontrollable power, the absolute right to govern. When government was set up, government had limitations on the as is pointed out in the Constitution, what it could do to we the people. We the people were sovereign. We had our own. We governed ourselves. So what does government want to do? Government wanted to control the people. It wanted to extend its boundaries. So because the Constitution stipulated, which is a contract between we the people and the government, it was stipulated in the Constitution that there should not be there should be no legislation making contracts null and void, which means they're not going to make it impossible for people to enter into contracts. So that was the loophole that the government used to trick the people. So we the people were tricked into turning over their birthrights for privileges granted to by the government. And the government is only a body of people